Excellent. All right, so this is part three. Part three, when you're evaluating historical imagery, is definitely take a look at the people inside of the picture. We did this before in the last picture when we looked at Chairman Mao and Joseph Stalin. We were able to identify them and put that stamp somewhere in China in the middle of the 20th century based off of the people. Now, let's take a look at this picture. First thing you want to do when you're examining a historical image for people is see if you can recognize anyone in the picture. Does anyone in this picture look familiar? Well, there's one gentleman with a top hat that looks remarkably similar to former President Abraham Lincoln, right? So when we see Abraham Lincoln in a picture, what does that do? We got to think back to the time frame, right? Because now we got to establish a time frame for this picture. Well, if Lincoln's alive, obviously it's probably during the Civil War, and we can get this idea that it's during the Civil War because look who he's standing around. Is he standing around businessmen? No. Is he standing around farmers? No. Those men have swords, and they're dressed in military uniforms. So chances are this is Abraham Lincoln visiting some sort of Union camp during the Civil War. Pretty cool, right? And we were able to come to that conclusion, one, because we were able to identify a person in the picture that we knew. Abraham Lincoln has that beard, he has that hat, okay, and he's tall. He's a very tall individual. Look at him compared to everybody else. He's like, hey, I'm president, and I'm taller than you, so now you really got to listen to me. And this chair I'm holding on to over here to the left, yeah, definitely I don't fit in that chair. So we understand Abraham Lincoln's in here. Because Abraham Lincoln's in this picture, we could obviously come up with a time. It's during the time that he's alive. And to add to that time frame, we have Union soldiers standing around him. We can also establish a location because there are so many Union soldiers standing around with Abraham Lincoln, and there are tents in the background. So we can kind of come up with the fact that this is a Union camp, probably during the Civil War. More than likely it's during the Civil War, and Abraham Lincoln has come for a visit for some reason. So, because we were able to draw back on establishing a time, establishing a location, but most importantly, we started with examining the people. We were able to come up with that this picture represents or shows us that Abraham Lincoln visited Union camps during the Civil War. So, if we encounter a question on the EOC and we aren't given the time, and we aren't given the location, and we aren't given people, we're able to take time, location, and people, basically what we just did here with examining the people, and come up with a good time frame that this picture was probably taken. So we can assess this picture, Civil War, Lincoln visiting Union troops in a camp somewhere. So if we encounter any questions around this, we already have the basics of the information. It's a Civil War picture. It's Lincoln visiting the Union. It's probably, maybe could be corresponding to a speech of some sort. The possibilities are endless. It just all depends on the question on the EOC. So keep that in mind. Examining people is a pivotal point of understanding historical imagery. If you aren't giving any other information, we aren't given a date, we aren't given a time, we can examine the people and kind of get an idea of when this picture was. And the first thing you want to do when you examine people, look for faces that you know. If you can find a historical picture and have a historical persona in that picture, it'll give you a good idea of when they existed or when the picture was taken, based off of when they existed and when they were around. So that's examining historical imagery when you examine people to try to figure out everything else, such as time and location, and gain a greater perspective of the picture you're looking at. The next thing we're going to go over is examining the text. We did a little bit of this with the Coca-Cola picture in the beginning to give you an overview, and we're going to go further in depth with that now. So go ahead and continue on to the next video. Thanks.